A capital allocation committee reviews a proposed AI initiative carrying a projected payback of 14 months. The model shows clean upfront capital followed by reliable operating expense relief. 18 months later, the same project remains deep in negative territory with no clear path to recovery. This gap between forecast and lived outcome appears repeatedly in organizations' stress testing automation commitments. The question it forces forward is precise. What truly sets the break-even point for AI investments? And why do so many forecasts miss it by such a wide margin? The standard assumption treats these projects as relatively straightforward capital recovery exercises. Commit the resources, capture the efficiencies, and cross the threshold inside a predictable window. In practice, the horizon proves far more slippery. Total capital absorbed routinely exceeds the visible budget as preparation, validation, and ongoing alignment layers accumulate. The recovery clock therefore starts later and runs longer than the initial model allows. In its simplest form, the model has two lines. One tracks cumulative capital deployed, the other tracks cumulative realized savings. Break-even sits at their intersection. In practice, the capital line rises faster and the savings line starts later, pushing that intersection outward. Break-even depends on the durability of the savings stream against the full capital base. Early gains must not only appear, but persist at sufficient scale and consistency. The recovery holds only if that persistence survives changing volumes, requirements, and performance drift. When any of those conditions weaken, the crossover point moves outward. Organizations regularly watch short payback projections stretch into multi-year recovery periods once live conditions take hold. The investment base itself often expands after approval. What begins as a bounded commitment grows through successive adjustments needed to maintain alignment with operating reality. Each added layer increases total capital deployed without a matching acceleration in savings. The apparent payback window widens under these cumulative adjustments, often without being explicitly recalculated. Here the model tightens. The system does reduce operating cost in a visible layer, but it adds integration, maintenance, and utilization risk in others. The savings are real. The recovery is conditional. Savings timing adds its own constraint. Initial wins emerge from the lowest hanging opportunities, but sustaining momentum requires continuous capital input. Once easy gains are exhausted, each additional increment of efficiency demands outsized effort. The savings curve flattens while the investment line keeps rising. What looks like a temporary delay can harden into structural shortfall when that conversion loses traction. Integration realities impose further stickiness. Connecting AI into legacy workflows seldom concludes with initial setup. Interfaces need ongoing reconciliation, exception volumes often rise rather than fall, and parallel running extends longer than budgeted to protect quality. These elements consume capital never fully provisioned up front. The efficiency remains visible only while integration burden stays tightly contained. Once it expands, cost is relocated more than removed. Utilization volatility tightens the economics even more. Variable cost compression assumes stable, high throughput. In practice, demand fluctuates with cycles, seasons, or internal changes. In lower volume periods, fixed elements, reserved capacity, monitoring teams, baseline maintenance, dominate. The break-even line therefore becomes extremely sensitive to whether high utilization can actually be sustained quarter after quarter, a condition many environments cannot guarantee. Model maintenance cycles create another persistent drag. Data distributions shift, edge cases multiply, and performance requires regular refresh. Each cycle adds validation and testing costs on top of the original commitment. These recurring burdens are routinely understated in early models. Over time, they compound, turning what appeared as a clean recovery path into one that demands ongoing capital simply to hold ground. Scale interacts with recovery timing in non-linear ways. Larger deployments amortize some fixed costs across greater volume, yet extend stabilization periods and coordination overhead. The scale advantage holds only if that added coordination does not delay savings realization. Smaller, contained efforts sometimes reach break-even sooner precisely because they avoid complexity layers. The optimal economic scale for recovery frequently sits below maximum technical capacity. Organizations that reach break-even more reliably maintain strict visibility over the complete capital envelope. They track every induced cost layer against actual savings in real time. They enforce hard thresholds for continued commitment. Projects that linger underwater longer often succumb to continuation bias, pouring additional capital forward under the expectation that future gains will still close the gap, even as the required savings volume grows. This quietly compounds exposure under quarterly pressure. The two-line model still holds. The difference is that both lines move under real conditions. The capital line keeps rising through integration, maintenance, and alignment adjustments. The savings line rises more slowly and less predictably than planned. Break-even therefore arrives only when the sustained savings stream exceeds the full accumulated capital outlay inside a timeframe that still justifies the commitment. Many initiatives deliver surface efficiencies, yet fail to generate net recovery once every layer is tallied. The difference lies not in the existence of gains, but in whether those gains compound fast enough and persistently enough to overcome the complete burden. This pattern does not mean AI investments lack merit. It means the break-even point is narrower and rests on more conditional ground than standard projections acknowledge. Organizations that navigate it successfully treat capital durability and recovery timing as primary allocation variables. They model multiple scenarios, maintain parallel cost tracking, and remain willing to exit when observed conditions no longer close. The break-even point exists, but only within tighter conditions than most models assume. Understanding those conditions determines whether recovery is achieved or continuously deferred.